Greetings, I'm your host, Dr. Wolfula, and when I'm not condemning my servant Goulash to a series of deadly games, I'm here at the Wolfula reviewing movies. Speaking of which, let's check up on Goulash.
What happened? Somebody must have hit me over the head, which isn't unusual, but it's also slightly dark. I can't see anything. Well, at least, I'm chained up. What's going on?
Oh, here, let me turn on the lights.
Oh, thank you.
I bet you're confused about where you are right now, Goulash.
Not really. It's the Wolfula basement. It's where you forced me to live.
Oh, yeah, right. Whatever. Do you want to play a game?
Ooh, what kind of game? Like apples to apples or Jumanji?
No, wait. We have apples to apples down there? Oh, never mind. I meant a deadly game of, death.
That doesn't sound as fun.
Not at all. I'm releasing an invisible deadly toxin to the basement as we speak.
So that's what that smell is. Ugh.
The antidote is hidden inside the puzzle box at your feet.
You mean this Rubik's Cube?
Shut up, you're gonna get me sued. Solve the puzzle box and it will eject the antidote. You have until the end of this video to solve the puzzle box.
Rubik's Cube.
Shut the fuck up, just do it. Clock's ticking.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got some time to kill, I guess, so I'm gonna review Saw as part of Avember. Okay, Avember isn't a real thing. I'm gonna stop trying to push it. I'm just gonna finish making the last two videos left from October 2019 already, move on, and try not to embarrass myself further. This has been a big fuck-up. So, anywho, up until just last year, I never saw, get it, a Saw movie. Saw was the biggest horror franchise of the mid-2000s, an era rampant with remakes, horror fans to this day will still insist are good, but I never bothered to watch a single Saw movie myself. I'm not gonna lie, my motivations for not watching Saw were a bit hipsterish. Saw was super popular, so it probably wasn't good. That was my perspective. It's extremely unfair, and I apologize to diehard Saw fans, but it didn't help that the supposed last movie's poster made it look like they were building a giant jigsaw mech, which definitely wasn't in the movie, unfortunately. And also, on the surface, the Saw films didn't really appeal to me, and they got a bad rap for supposedly just being mindless torture porn. Not true. The series has a lot of depth to it and artistry in how each film is crafted. Now, Saw films are not the best horror films under the sun, but as a series, it's probably one of the most consistent in quality, which is saying something. Seeing as there are now 8 Saw films going on 9 with that Chris Rock one in the works. We sure do live in exciting times in horror where Chris Rock is starring, producing, and providing the story ideas for a Saw movie. I'm not being sarcastic either, that sounds really cool on paper. I have since seen all of the Saw films last year, and even though I wouldn't call myself a fan of the series, I must say it's a well-done horror franchise overall, with a lot of movies to discuss. So let's start with the first one. Saw was the brainchild of 2 Australian filmmakers fresh out of film school with similar last names, James Wan and Leigh Whannell, the story being conceived by the two, with Wan directing the film and Whannell writing the screenplay and playing the lead role. Saw itself was inspired by the low-budget horror films making it big at the time, like Blair Witch Project, but it being made in Australia was still unlikely, so the duo made a short film also called Saw to try to convince LA producers to pick up the feature film, similar to how The Evil Dead was made based on the Within the Woods short. The Saw short film adapted one of the scenes from the screenplay, but with Whannell playing a character named David, which fills in for the Amanda character from the feature film. The short, which is now known by the fandom as Saw .5, is well made, but since a better version of it appears in the full film, there's not a whole lot of point to see it unless you're a huge Saw fan. Anywho though, the 2003 short film convinced producers to finance Saw. The film was made, Lionsgate picked up the rights to the highly successful franchise, and the rest is history. But 15 years later now, does the original Saw hold up? Well, let's see. Or should I say, Saw. No wait, that doesn't make any sense. Oh well.
I don't know why Doc thinks Rubik's Cubes are hard to solve. This is like so easy. A child could do this.
Simply put, Saw is the story of 2 men chained up in a bathroom, which by itself sounds like the premise of a hardcore BDSM video, but the dead guy in the middle of the room kinda complicates matters. Some like it a little too rough.
What the fuck is this?
Calm down. Just
calm down.
The two men in question are Adam, played by Lee Wanell, who is a bit of a wimpy dork, and Dr. Lawrence Gordon, played by Cary Elwes, who is also a bit of a wimpy dork, but also a surgeon.
What we need to do is start thinking about why we're here.
I think it's safe to say that the years following Princess Bride were not kind to Mr. Elwes' career. The men are lacking in context as to why they are trapped in what looks like Randy Quaid's restroom, but they soon listen to some cassette tapes featuring a friendly voice that tells them all that they really need to know.
Rise and shine, Adam. You're probably wondering where you are.
Adam's tape says he needs to escape the room with his life, pretty straightforward, while Gordon's tape explains that he needs to kill Adam by 6 o'clock himself, or Dr. Gordon's family will be killed. Yeah, Saw apparently takes place over the course of about 7 hours, but it doesn't really seem like it would, unless all the flashback stories really took several hours to tell. Saw does present the tale of two guys stuck in a twisted escape room setting that's one big puzzle they have to figure their way out of, and while the Saw sequels took the concept and ran the fuck with it, the first Saw doesn't dwell too much on the main character's present story, and doesn't do all that much with this setting either.
I'm in exactly the same situation that you're in.
Instead, Saw can sort of be described as a Pulp Fiction-style anthology story, with the bathroom setting acting as a framing device to tell a non-linear mystery narrative in the form of short, interconnected tales involving their captor, which Adam and Dr. Gordon play roles in. The first Saw definitely introduced the franchise's storytelling hallmarks, telling a story that's out of order and flashback-heavy. In fact, no joke, some of the flashbacks in this film happen within other flashbacks. It's an insane way to tell any story, and Saw definitely asks for rewatches just for how confusing the first viewing can be. But trust me, the sequels to come take the confounding structure of this film and evolves it into one of the most convoluted timelines in horror history, if not the most. The killer at the center of Saw isn't really a killer, directly at least.
When there's that much poison in your blood, the only thing left to do is shoot yourself.
Known as Jigsaw, in the first film he's mostly depicted as an enigmatic, ominous voice, sometimes accompanied by a cute little puppet named Billy with a spooky laugh. Adorable. Jigsaw's shtick is he targets folks and places them in elaborate, deadly, but solvable traps, and it sorta makes him seem like he's some kind of Batman villain. If his victims survive the trap, they will hopefully come out of their situation with a newfound appreciation for life, making Jigsaw kind of like a goth self-help guru. He even has followers that do his bidding. Well, dressed up as pig furries going to a ghost concert. I guess there might be some symbolism here or something, I don't care. This positive transformative aspect of Jigsaw is illustrated through the story of a rare survivor. Amanda, a drug addict who was the victim of Jigsaw's iconic reverse bear trap in a tense sequence previously depicted in the short film. To escape her head getting smushed, she's forced to gut a paralyzed guy for the key, which she does with aplomb. Amanda's survival did improve her life, making her kick her drug addiction, and she has a larger role in the sequels, but the experience didn't exactly cure the severe mental illnesses she suffers from, but alright, whatever.
Help me.
Thing is, though, most don't survive Jigsaw's traps, and these deaths are deemed suicides for some reason, but if you put somebody in a room filled with barbed wire that they'll be trapped in otherwise, I don't think they're killing themselves, but yeah, okay, whatever. I'll get more into Jigsaw later in the spoiler section of this review. It's a twist that everyone knows by now, and if you're watching my obscure, extremely niche videos, chances are high you're familiar with these films, but still. Like I said, Saw doesn't focus much attention on Adam and Gordon, instead having them flashback to past events to try and figure out how they got where they are.
On my 6th birthday, my best friend at the time, Scott Tibbs, stabbed me with a rusty nail. I didn't tell you about that. I didn't tell you that my last girlfriend, who was a feminist vegan punk, broke up with me because she thought I was too angry.
The characters spend so much time reminiscing that even they fucking forget by the end that they had a time limit. A very generous one, I might add.
We're out of time.
Through the flashbacks, though, it's revealed that Saw has two parallel subplots that eventually converge, and where a lot of the meat of the story is actually contained. There's the subplot that Dr. Gordon has a direct stake in, his family's well-being. Dr. Gordon is revealed to be a bit of a scumbag. His profession calls on himself being surrounded by death, but yet he still has no apparent appreciation for his own life. Gordon is a callous, emotionally distant fellow who barely has any relationship with his wife, is a neglectful father, and, oh, did I mention he has a mistress? The cheating plotline is so awkward because the dude is apparently fucking this chick on the side, but she still just calls him Dr. Gordon as if this is some kind of checkup.
What's wrong, Dr. Gordon?
Come on, I think if somebody's been inside you, you can be on a first-name basis if you're gonna jump straight into fucking. Regardless, Gordon's family is held hostage and will die unless Gordon can prove his love for him, yada yada yada. It's kinda odd how a little girl is getting punished for her dad being a dickhead, but alright, Jigsaw, I'm gonna trust you know what you're doing here.
What are you doing to them, you bastard?
The other subplot is a little derivative concerning Danny Glover essentially reprising his role from Lethal Weapon, but for whatever reason, he never says I'm getting too old for this shit. Wasted opportunity.
We arrested a dentist last week. We like to play with kids a bit too much.
Mr. Glover is the detective on the Jigsaw case, and it's clear that he's not getting too old for this shit, but he's also definitely not getting laid while doing it.
Maybe you should find yourself a girlfriend.
The Saw series is heavy on cop characters throughout, which makes sense, seeing as they'd be looking for a serial killer, but it feels a little too close to 7 for comfort, and nowhere near as good. After this flick, the series did a much better job of balancing the detective and victim stories, but Saw has such a strong concept with people escaping death traps, they don't really do a whole lot with the idea in this first movie beyond the initial 20 minutes. The movie really wants to be a neo-noir thriller more than a horror film, even though it has such a novel concept with victims escaping Jigsaw's traps, focusing instead on Danny Glover trying to crack this case wide open, and it does lead to a really exciting confrontation with Jigsaw, who totally predicted the Assassin's Creed franchise and also totally killed Danny's partner while also scarring the Lethal Weapon actor, which makes things personal. But the bootleg 7 cop mystery just really distracts from the main characters of Saw, taking you out of their story. When I first watched Saw, there were times where I completely forgot Adam and Dr. Gordon existed. It feels like they're barely there. I mean, literally, 20 minutes can pass by in Saw without the 2 main characters appearing, and what scenes they do have tend to have some long, dull stretches. It feels like with this first Saw, they didn't quite think of a whole lot of exciting stuff to do with the 2 guys chained up in a restroom, outside of Adam digging through shit like he's Laura Dern, so all the side stuff had to pick up the slack. There is tension between the characters that make things interesting.
Who are you? You know who I am.
They clearly are unreliable and withholding information from each other, but I felt like they weren't given a lot of time to develop as characters or have their relationship evolve in interesting ways or even tell enough of their own stories, especially Adam. All I really learned about Adam was his occupation as a photographer. You'd also think there'd be even more tension between the characters and a sense of frantic urgency seeing as they have a time limit, but it seems like the time limit is completely forgotten by the characters until they finally do run out of time. Adam and Dr. Gordon occasionally will solve a thing in the room, but mostly just spend their time chilling out and chatting about exposition. The one really exciting moment with the characters in the restroom before the final act is Adam pretending to die from a poisoned cigarette in the hopes of tricking Jigsaw. It doesn't work out, though. The sound effect of Adam getting electrocuted sounds like it's from a cartoon show. The performances of Saw are a bit all over the place. Highlights include Danny Glover, who puts that Lethal Weapon experience to good use in the action scenes, and Tobin Bell, who plays Jigsaw and may not be in the film much, but his voice alone does bring a sense of menace to every scene it's heard in.
Awake already, Jeff. I need more powerful tranquilizers next time.
As far as the main duo goes, well, this was Lee Whannell's first feature film performance, and it does show. Some of his line delivery is pretty stiff.
Whatever.
And as the actual writer of the movie, you can tell he was really trying to give his character the spotlight with the best lines, but he does a good job overall as a comedy relief in the film that does inject some life.
I don't give a crap if you covered yourself in peanut butter and had a 15-hooker gangbang.
Whannell also kind of has to carry the scenes in the bathroom because it feels like Cary Elwes in this movie was taking classes in the William Shatner School of Overacting.
You're not a victim of this game. You're part of it.
Cary Elwes as Dr. Gordon is either constantly shouting monotonously while extending his jaw like a snake, quivering his lips to show he's sad, pounding on the ground in anger, or rolling up on the floor like David Hasselhoff eating a cheeseburger. God, I feel like any moment he'll pick up a skull and say, "Alas, poor Yorick."
I'm gonna take great pleasure in seeing you pray for that. You bastard fuck!
There's no nuance to this performance. I definitely get the sense that Cary Elwes was a serious actor in a horror show who was really going out of his way to try to win a fucking Oscar in a movie called Saw.
Stop the lies! You're a liar! I need to know the truth!
Visually, Saw looks great. The first film establishes the franchise's signature look. The lighting does wonders, making all the environments of the film feel uncomfortable and eerie. There's this stark white antiseptic lighting of the restroom that contrasts how shitty and gross it all looks, which extends to the looks of Dr. Gordon's hospital and the police headquarters, places that feel just as cold and forbidding. Of course, there's also the lighting of Jigsaw's domain, the Saw franchise's trademark putrid green color palette that just gives the settings of Jigsaw's various traps an uneasy alien feel. The way James Wan shot and edited the film gives it a very immersive, sometimes even homemade, gritty feel that grants the film a sense of realism few horror movies can really nail. With Saw's oftentimes frenetic energy in some moments, you can tell from the beginning that James Wan was meant to be an action director. The funny thing about all the use of newspaper photos, security camera footage, and all the other stuff that gives Saw a realistic feel, it was all unintended. Production of the film was rushed, so in the editing, they had to fill in missing gaps any way they could, and it really does work for the most part, though the way some moments are edited is a little, over the top in a goofy way. The production design is also great, especially Jigsaw's hideout, filled to the brim with little twisted details that give you an idea of how he builds all of his shit. But, I don't know, I feel like the main location that was actually built from the ground up, the bathroom, I feel like it's a little too on the nose for a soiled restroom. I mean, it looks like a boiler room covered in tiles with like one shit-covered toilet and bathtub inserted. And why is it so big? I know it sounds like I'm being overly critical of a bathroom in a movie, but this is the set we spend most of the time in, and I just kind of wish it looked as good as the other cool sets we see in the movie. Overall, though, everything else about Saw's design is pretty fantastic, especially the stuff Jigsaw makes. Billy the Puppet himself is an iconic horror character, and he's not even a character, but the look of that puppet leaves an impression and gives Jigsaw much more of a personality beyond just being a scary voice.
You don't know me, but I know you. I want to play a game.
Jigsaw's traps feel thrown together with whatever he can find, but fully functional in deadliness. The looks of these gizmos alone are freaky because the way they're handled makes you put yourselves in the shoes of the characters stuck in these situations. Honestly, it just highlights something missing from the main characters' story. They're just chained to pipes the whole movie, and maybe they'll cut their feet off. Saw gets a bad rap itself as torture porn, but the first Saw isn't really all that gory outside of a few key moments. Today, the movie would probably get a PG rating. It's much more of a thriller than a splatterfest, which might disappoint people who watched a later Saw movie and dug the gore. A lot of people call me out when I bring up gore. I know it's not all about the gore, it's just, if somebody is going to watch a movie called Saw, they might be looking for gore. Despite a lack of gore throughout, what's there is good, and the film does work without a lot of gore. Before I move on to the ending spoilers, just want to talk real quick about Saw's score by Charlie Krauss. For the most part, it just gets the job done. The music has an industrial sound to it that sort of feels like it's part of the film's soundscape. The music in its subtlety doesn't leave much of an impression, but it certainly complements the movie's atmosphere and suspenseful moments well. The real standout track in the film is Hello Zep, which has become the theme for the Saw franchise. It only plays at the end of Saw, but it really suits the revelatory epilogue nature of the film's finale, gradually escalating as all the puzzle pieces are put in place. Alrighty, spoiler time. If you don't want the ending of Saw given away, skip to the time code to spare yourself and hear my final thoughts. Nearing the finale, it's revealed that Adam is hiding something behind his boyish blank stare. He reveals he's a blackmail photographer, the Spider-Man of guys fucking people who aren't their wives, and Dr. Gordon was Adam's latest subject. Adam was hired by Roger Murdaugh, now an ex-cop, to keep tabs on Gordon, who he was convinced was Jigsaw due to his nightly excursions, which were ironically just awkward sex. Gordon himself pieces together from Adam's pictures who he believes to be responsible for all of this. Zep, the guy who played Ben from Lost, who was an orderly at Gordon's hospital.
His name is Zep.
He's an orderly at my hospital.
Haha, they solved the mystery. That's great. But they also wasted 7 hours doing that, and now Dr. Gordon's family has to die. They could have been a bit more productive with their time, I admit. Fortunately, Gordon's wife breaks free and is saved by Danny Glover, who proceeds to go all lethal weapon on the escaping Zep. Zep rushes to Adam and Gordon's location to murder them because I guess Jigsaw skimped on the traps in this situation. All the while, Danny Glover is in pursuit and Cary Elwes is really working his ass off for that Academy Award. Dr. Gordon finally, last minute, proves how much he cares for his family by sawing his foot off. As far as he knows, they're already dead, but okay. Why didn't this movie have more of this kind of shit? After a struggle, I suppose Zep proves once and for all that Danny Glover is too old for this shit. Tragic. Speaking of being shot in the chest, Dr. Gordon shoots Adam in the chest. It's like poetry, it rhymes. Unfortunately, Dr. Gordon killed a guy who wasn't one of his patients for nothing because it's past the time limit anyway. Maybe in his next life he'll manage his time better. Fortunately, Adam must be like Kryptonian or something because he survived being shot and, much like Elvis Presley, Zep is killed by a toilet. Dr. Gordon finna leave on one foot, but not without letting Adam know he's going to get help.
I'll bring someone back. I promise.
Spoilers. He didn't. In a last-ditch effort, Adam manages to find Zep's secret exposition tape, which reveals that the man was also just another pawn of Jigsaw's, who was revealed to be the guy who everyone thought was dead in the room. Jigsaw kinda thick, though. It doesn't totally make sense why he needed to pretend to be a dead guy in a room for 7+ hours, but it's certainly a twist, I guess. Jigsaw's alter ego is John Kramer, a man with a soul patch diagnosed with terminal cancer. With such little time left and a newfound appreciation for life, he simply seeks, sort of vengefully, to teach people the hard way about counting their blessings and to properly live their lives to the fullest by constructing elaborate death mazes. Jimmy Carter builds houses, Jigsaw fastens bear traps to people's heads. Who's the greater hero, I ask you? I'll give you a hint. He was never president. Anyway, Adam is left to die. The end.
Game over.
Oh, quit crying, you big fucking baby. The original Saw is not without its flaws. It feels in a lot of ways like a pilot episode for a horror franchise, and like any pilot, it feels like it mostly serves as a rough outline of the formula future episodes, or in this case, sequels would follow, providing plenty of examples of what its premise has the potential to do, but not necessarily seeing all the ideas to their full potential. I feel like Saw is one of those franchises, though, where you have to take all of the films as a whole. Again, it's a bit like a TV series with only a few 90-minute episodes you have to binge watch. The original Saw is definitely worth watching. It might not have a totally clear idea of what it should be exactly. I feel like the sequels have a stronger sense of identity than this first film, but this is where the story begins, and it's still a strong beginning for a series you should definitely check out as a horror fan. I give Saw a crying Carrie Elwes out of sweet cancer. Alrighty, review's over. Let's see if Goulash has solved my puzzle. Okay, let's see that corpse. What the? Oh, you got the antidote?
Clearly.
Oh, so you solved the puzzle box?
You mean Rubik's Cube?
Shut up, I'm gonna get so many cease and desist letters. So, how did you solve it?
Are you serious? It's a Rubik's Cube. It's not that hard to figure out.
Really? I can never figure out how myself.
Oh, okay. Well, you see, the key to solving a Rubik's Cube is you start with one side, and then you move on to the one in the middle, followed by...
Listen, I don't care, and this isn't the only trap I've set for you.
Ah, oh no!
Let's see you escape from this trap. I call it the death bag. Every struggle means less oxygen as you suffocate.
Wait a second. Is this just a bag?
Yeah?
Not very good at this, sir.
I know. If you liked this video, like it, but if you loved it, subscribe for more and click the bell icon to keep track of future uploads and streams. Follow me on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Dr. Wolfula. Hang out with a virtual me on the Popbase app, available for free on iOS and Android today. You can ask me questions, hear updates, decorate my mini Wolfulair as you see fit, collect exclusive pics and wallpapers, play mini games, take horror trivia quizzes, and watch some vids with my avatar. Also, consider purchasing one of my shirts on TeePublic. I got a lot of designs to choose from and more on the way. Finally, if you can, support the channel by pledging to my Patreon, where you can get a VIP invite to my Discord, the Wolfulair, early access to reviews, get channel updates, join private movie streams, get full video commentaries, including my new Bloody Murder 2 commentary, and get special thanks shoutouts at the end of all of my vids and streams. Speaking of which, I'd like to thank my true Wolfulite supporters on Patreon. The channel would be nothing without their continued support, and it's greatly appreciated. Thanks again to all of you. I've been your host, Dr. Wolfula, signing out. See you all next time.